You are listening to the Lucha Central Podcast Network. And now, Lucha Central Weekly.
Hello and welcome to another edition of the Lucha Central Weekly Podcast. This is the podcast that lets you know all of the latest happening in the world of Lucha Libre. Each week our team discusses news and events from the past week as well as preview the week ahead, covering Mexico-based promotions and top independents along with luchador-related news from throughout the United States. The Lucha Central Weekly Podcast is part of the Lucha Central Podcast Network on luchacentral.com. This podcast and others from the network are also available on all major podcast streaming platforms, including iTunes, Google Play, Spotify, iHeartRadio, Podbay, and Speaker. My name is Miranda Morales, and I'm one of the co-hosts of the Lucha Central Weekly Podcast, and I don't do this alone. No, that's pretty much what a co-host means. So let me bring in my fellow co-host. Introducing first, he is the dashing one, Mr. Dusty Murphy. Dusty, how are you?
It's doing great, Miranda. Real excited about all the great stuff we have to talk about this week.
We have a lot of great stuff to talk about. And, I mean, you have to plug in. Dusty was not featured in only one, but two blogs this week from his adventures out in Austin from AEW. I believe you were featured in Sammy's blog and Ethan Page's blog.
Yeah, both
Video
of
blog,
them. Yeah.
Yes.
Got a good shot in both. Yeah, I was really surprised.
I missed the Ethan Page one. That's cool.
Yeah, I was the only heckler. Like, everybody was on their phone videoing it, and I was in his face like, boo, get out of here.
Classic Dusty.
You got to be in the moment. This is
exactly. Like, yeah, I don't want to be on my phone. I want to have fun.
Yes,
right?
Good for you. Good.
That's why you bring your kid to the show. Then you
That's
heckler and you can film the kid, and you'll be like, I'm just being the good dad.
Yeah. Well, he was filming me.
That's that Pampiro Firpo story we got, you know?
Yeah.
And our second co-host, well, third, technically, there's three of us because we're a trio, is who?
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 It's the one and only Brendan Barr.
That's who.
Hey, you already heard my voice, so yeah.
Now,
that was a sneak preview.
Sneak preview. I mean, it's hard, especially when Dusty's being so popular and being in all these vlogs. Living his best life, Dusty.
Yeah.
Speaking of living their best lives, we have a few birthday shout-outs. First, a very, very happy birthday, feliz cumpleaños, to friend of the show, someone we adore and love to watch and love to chat with. Mr. Iguana's birthday was this week.
Yes.
We hope he had a fantastic birthday.
Absolutely.
You know, one of our favorite people of all time and someone we just enjoy watching in AAA and also making a bigger presence here in the States. If you have not followed Mr. Iguana or know Mr. Iguana, you just need to follow him. You need to see his social medias.
Yeah.
Just watch his matches. They're so entertaining and fun to watch. Yeska, of course, I'm sure, I don't think we have a confirmed date of birth yet for Yeska, but I'm sure she also enjoyed Mr. Iguana's birthday this week.
Well, you know they've partied together. I mean,
yes.
Oh, 100%.
Yes, you do not have one without the other. So, feliz cumpleaños, Mr. Iguana. Happy birthday. From the trio here at the Lucha Central Weekly Podcast to you. We hope you had a fantastic, fantastic birthday. And someone else who's had a birthday this week, Thunder Rosa. A feliz cumpleaños to her as well. She's had a very big week. We are going to talk much, much more about her later on in the show. But a great week for Thunder Rosa on top of her birthday. We will get into that. No spoilers yet, but if you know that she's had a pretty darn good week.
there's one thing that didn't make it into the segment we're about to introduce that I'm just gonna add in real quick since we are talking about her. Mission Pro starts touring soon.
Mm-hmm.
So, congratulations to them for starting a touring schedule. I know that is her baby, and that's
Super
a huge
cool.
deal. Yeah. So, hopefully coming to a city near you, Mission Pro Wrestling, the first completely female organized, run, and primarily female facing talent too. So, all right.
Well, Brendan, go ahead and take us to the road back to shows.
That's the one. That's the segment that I just barely wasn't going to talk about it, and then I realized it was Thunder Rosa's birthday. But we're going to start with our usual place. Mexico City is yellow. The government has affirmed that they will fix it at yellow for a little bit. This is it's kind of weird and awkward, as it always is with them trying to cope with how COVID is working. AAA's date for Triple Mania seems to still be firmly set. Dusty will obviously let us know if there's any major revelations on that. But I'm also keeping an eye on it as related to Mexico City still being yellow.
Yeah.
Yeah, go ahead.
Seems very firm right now. I mean, I expected it would change. It still could, but right now it looks pretty steady and pretty solid that they'll keep their date. Yeah,
the teams, the tourist things, teams, because the football team, that's where I was at, that have been impacted have already made major announcements, and AAA has not. So we seem to be in good shape there, but who knows? New cases are increasing and not decreasing right now, just like they are in many areas of the United States.
Is that Delta variant happening?
Mm-hmm.
Well, yeah, I could editorialize on the amount of people that think that the world is fine and safe now as well. But anyway, it has continued to affect other things as well. So we had shows that had to cancel recently. Of note is Vanguardia and DTU have indefinitely postponed their shows in Pachua region, where the color designation is light red. We all giggled about this light red when I first read it. They seem to be really afraid to say red, so we're just going to be light red or pinkish or, but both of those dates impacted other events that we will be talking about in the Indie Roundup, so I figured I would mention this as well. Also, shows are being canceled. Arena Querétaro says they'll be forced to go back on hiatus if conditions continue to get worse in the state. So instead of the optimism that we had just a couple short weeks ago, people are already starting to pull back and get paranoid that they may have to stop what they're doing, and it's just unfortunate. But that's the state we're in right now. Hopefully it's caution with a good reason, and we get back through and get back to being on the road to shows. I have one other, ending this on a good note. I like to end the road back to shows on as good a note as I can. The Crash has announced that they are returning to live shows, and they've got they're teasing Andrade is going to be there, as well as a Lucha Libre or a AAA star. So don't know who that is. There's lots of speculation on who it could be. But all in all, it's kind of cool to see the Crash trying to come back into the big swing, and on yet another date for Andrade, who's just becoming the hardest working man in wrestling right now.
Truly.
Mm-hmm.
And he's been lots of shows lately, building that brand.
Yeah. And he's announcing more dates. He's not slowing down, so good stuff there. So that was the road back to shows. We're just going to roll right into the indie roundup. A lot of this has, there's a lot of synergy in this. I love to use
corporate synergy.
Yeah, there it is. Big Lucha had their first televised show. They've had other shows, but they had one that was on the internet somewhere. I didn't get to see it. I don't know what happened on this one, but for those of you who don't remember, Big Lucha is the show that operates out of Bandito's Gym. So you're going to hear a lot of familiar names, particularly in the top half of the card. In the first match, we had Chaman El Bendito. So I don't know if this is intentional or not. El Bendito. Elemental, and so Chaman, El Bendito, and Elemental against Kamata, Maya, Gravity, and Orbita. The Chaman, El Bendito, and Elemental came out on top on that. In the second match, you had Mil Almas against Skyade. I never say his name right. Gabe just said it, and I tried to make a note of it, and I still can't say it right. But we're talking about a veteran man who is a master of the Llaves. I really want to find footage of this match in particular. He's probably was there as an instructor. Mil Almas won after a foul, but it was according to Cubs fans' notes, it was because there was an evil referee involved. So now I really need to see this. And then we had Dementor, Bestia del Ring, La Mascara against Demonio Inferno, Hijo del Abrije, and Trauma 1. This was a little bit of a match, or card will change sort of a situation, but Dementor, Bestia del Ring, and Mascara 1. Then we had Ciclone Ramirez Jr. and Commander against Emperador Azteca and Latigo, which again was a last minute replacement. Latigo worked his way in. The Commander got the pinfall after the Rudos got unmasked. So again, thank you, Cubs fan, for your notes on this. I did not get a chance to see this, and I really wanted to. And then in our last match, we had Bandito, Rush, and Tresario Jr. Now, let's just go over this here. This is the one. You have the man who owns the gym. You have the single biggest face in Lucha Libre right now, and you have a hot up and coming star. Dusty Miranda, who do you think won this match?
Well, if it was WWE, they'd have the heel win. But I'm going to go with the face. You got to go with the face.
Yeah, right?
I mean, that's Lucha.
You'd hope. Face.
Bandito did win, but it's because Rush cheated. So he got himself disqualified. And so it was one of those, technically the face won, but not really, which hopefully makes fans hungry to come back for another match, because, that's to your point about the WWE, that's kind of what they do, is they'll make the face lose a lot of the time so that the fans are always like, maybe this is the one time. Maybe this is it.
It's never it.
Yeah. And just when you think it will make sense or there's a story down the line, there never is, so.
Well, we can dream. Yeah. But, I'm more optimistic about that happening out of Bandito's gym, because it's not all about, all about a national company. It's just basically him having a show with his students and his friends. So,
Good point.
As long as he and Rush stay friends, they can maybe do something with this. And then we had, I wanted to give a shout out. I was invited earlier in the year to go out to New Jersey to see this, La Invasion of AAA Lucha Libre event.
Yes.
And this is not a commentary on the wrestling, but having seen some of the footage from social media, I'm really glad I didn't go because apparently it was a borderline hurricane during the event, and that sounds miserable. But I didn't get many of the results yet, so I'm trying to reach out to the people that invited me so I can get specific results. Psycho Clown's put up a bunch of stuff on his personal feed. A couple of the other wrestlers have put up things on social media, so I've got some hints. I've seen a lot of very wet wrestlers. But congratulations on getting a big show out in New Jersey. Like, if I was in New Jersey, I would have braved the rain to be out there because that's amazing. I just would have been miserable if I flew all the way across the country to sit in the rain because, I get enough of that here.
Very fair.
Like I said, I wanted to shout out to them. Thank you for the invitation. Hopefully I can make it to one of your events in the near future. Now that travel is easier and I seem to be accruing benefits for travel at this point, all my credit cards want me to fly, so maybe. That's a hint to all of you indie promoters. I might be able to come out to your show in the near future if you just let me know. We talked about shows being canceled in Mexico, GCW. Game Changer Wrestling. This was the weekend they were down in Mexico doing their tour. They were going to do 3 shows. Near as I can tell, they only did 1, which was on Fight TV. However, that was the Zona 23 show. So I intentionally did not watch that. I apologize to anyone that's relying on me, but was going to be way too hardcore for me to enjoy. I would have paid money to basically listen to the commentary because I can't. There's a lot of covering my face. If those of you who saw the Triple Mania live stream we did during the very light Extreme Rules match they had at one point, I was not even watching the screen. So there's no way with Zona 23 and GCW that I'm going to be able to watch anything. They did have some news out of it. The GCW Tag Team Championships did come off of Ciclope and Medio Extremo back to the team of G Raver and Jimmy Lloyd, who are not a regular tag team from my understanding in GCW. They're kind of the super team that was representing the promotion. So if you are a GCW fan, there's probably big story building out of that. But Mexico no longer owns their tag team titles, which is kind of sad, but at the same time good for GCW, who's doing a lot of shows. And then we had some IWRG. We actually had a lot of IWRG, but I'm gonna give you just a little taste of that. There's lots of coverage up for IWRG on Lucha Central's page itself. So, if you need your full results, you can find them there. It was a 6-match card here. The top half of this, we had Astro Boy, Freelance, and Redimido against Mr. Puma, Official, AK-47, and Zumbi. And, the team of Astro Boy, Freelance, and Redimido came out on top on that. And then the next match, we had Connect Jr. against Hijo de Dos Caras. This ended in DQ with Connect Jr. technically getting the hand raised, but again, it's IWRG. They're building towards a bigger show by not having a big somebody take a pinfall at this point. And then in the sixth match, we had Hijo de Albrije, Murder Clown, and Mystices Jr. against Abismo Negro Jr., Tonail, and Toxin. So one of the reasons I wanted to cover this is these are all names we've talked about in the last couple of shows. So I want to see the footage of this match, but it turns out that Hijo de la Brije, Murder Clown, and Mystices came out with the win on this. Toxin, who we talked a lot about being a great base, being involved means that you can have all kinds of crazy things going on with him and Mystices Jr. Murder Clown is in there for reasons. It's always, anytime you get any member of the Psycho Circus, something bizarre is going to happen, and probably Cookie Sheets are going to die. So I'm again super happy with all of this. But that was our IWRG. Again, I will point out that IWRG in particular is covered on the Lucha Central updates. They have most of the results we're talking about here for you, as well as many of the other results we'll be talking about later on the show.
Thank you, Brendan, for both the Road Back to shows and the Indie Roundup. Do not forget, we still want to feature independent promotions on our show. So if you are an independent wrestler, fan, or promotion, make sure you hit us up on social media. We will give our information at the end of the show. So that way you can let us know, what shows are happening, matches, all of that. We'd love to feature on a future edition of the Indie Roundup. Now we're going to kick it off to Denise Salcedo, who brings us this week's Lucha Central.
Why should you visit thechairshot.com? Thechairshot.com is your home for hard-hitting reviews, news, opinion, and analysis with attitude. Why? Because you're smarter than the average fan. Thechairshot.com. Always use your head.
Hey everyone, it's Denise Salcedo here in Lucha Central with a reminder of where and when to catch all of the great network content this week. Get the full lineup and listen to all of our shows in the podcast network section of luchacentral.com. On Tuesdays, Mass, Mats, and Mayhem takes you inside the world of Lucha Underground as they take you weekly through the series with the benefit of hindsight and the benefit of special guests from the groundbreaking series. Check out the premiere video stream every Tuesday at 2 p.m. Pacific, 5 p.m. Eastern on the Lucha Central YouTube channel and at luchacentral.com. Then listen to it on your favorite podcast platform every Wednesday. Tuesday nights live, it's Wrestle Boss, where Fabi Chulo talks MMA and pro wrestling with special guests and listener call-ins. Visit WrestleBossLive.com Tuesday nights at 7 p.m. Pacific to listen live or call in with questions or download the show on podcast platforms on Wednesdays. Wednesday nights live on Facebook, it's Spanish show La Mesa de los Márgaros, giving you both the news and the chisme from around the lucha world. Special guests and a whole lot of fun make it one of the most talked about shows in Mexico. Thursdays, it's Straight Out of the Bodega with Papo Esco and PWR promoter Gabriel Ramirez as they have guests from throughout the wrestling world pull up to give an inside look into their careers. From indie standouts to television superstars, each week brings a new name and perspective. On Friday, it's your double dose of Lucha Central Weekly podcast, one in English y el otro en español. Lucha Central Weekly is where you'll find all the top stories of the week, both inside and out of the ring from Mexico and anywhere luchadores are in action across the globe. Be sure to subscribe and follow all your favorite Lucha Central Network series on your favorite podcast platforms, either by their own series name or subscribe to the Lucha Central Podcast Network show pages to get all of the shows in one easy feed. And please consider giving a rating to help more fans find the shows that you love. For now, this is Denise Salcedo signing off from Lucha Central. Have a great week.
Lucha-Masks.com by Pro Wrestling Revolution, bringing you, in partnership with Mask Republic, the Lucha Brothers, as well as Japanese legend Ultimo Dragon. Go to lucha-masks.com and fight Lucha Strong with masks from your favorite Lucha legends and Pro Wrestling Revolution luchadores. Stay safe in style and represent your favorite luchador. Get yours now at lucha-masks.com, powered by Pro Wrestling Revolution.
Thank you to Denise Salcedo, who brings us this week's Lucha Central, letting you know what's happening throughout the Lucha Central Podcast Network. Up next, we're going to be jumping into a segment that we haven't had towards the beginning of the show for a while, but man, was it? I mean, look, we all know what the week has been in wrestling. Everything's everywhere, surprises left and right. So, I mean, it's hard to deny how good of a weekend it was for WWE. So, Dusty, go ahead and take it away.
Yeah, crowds were back. They had Friday Night SmackDown in Houston. It was an exciting night. Our opening match of the night was a trios match of the Usos and Roman versus the Mysterios with Edge. This was actually a surprisingly solid trios match. It was really good. WWE did a great job of only kind of teasing Roman versus Edge during the match. But unfortunately, the Mysterios and Edge took the loss, with Rey taking the actual pin, losing to the most dangerous move in wrestling, the schoolboy roll-up.
Mm-hmm.
Like, the dreaded roll-up. Post-match, Jay abused Rey. Jimmy took out Dominik, but Edge came in to make the save with the chair. Edge took out both Usos, but then he took a massive Superman punch from Roman. Roman broke off one of the bracing struts on the chair and took too long to do it. Edge was able to hit him with the spear. Edge hit the crossface on Roman with the piece of the chair. Great visual. Awesome. So that was cool. But then Raw, before we get to the pay-per-view, Raw, Karrion Kross lost to Jeff Hardy for absolutely no reason. And Jeff Hardy's only won 3 matches this year. One was when he tagged with Carlito, and the other was against Cedric Alexander in a retirement match. Like, those are the only 2 wins he's had all year. He beat Karrion Kross. It was an extremely weird match. It didn't last long. It went
under 3 minutes.
Yeah, and on top of that, Jeff Hardy felt it was strange for a large part of it because he just wasn't connecting with some of his bigger moves. Like, he just couldn't seem to pull it out. And then all of a sudden, babyface Jeff Hardy puts his feet on the rope and gets a pin. Like, it made absolutely no sense. It made no sense in the context of Karrion's current trajectory. It made little sense in the context of Raw and their current booking with Jeff Hardy. Like, it was just very strange. And he was so protected in NXT and on an unbeaten streak. And like,
it just seems so random that they bring him in now, even though we did know that, he had the dark match. It just seems so unsolicited, outside of just, hey, we have live crowds again. Let's just pack on a show so these live crowds can kind of get what they would consider their money's worth.
So that's just it. They put it. It felt like to me that they were putting him in front of a live crowd to see how he would do, but then they stripped him bare of all of the magic he has down in NXT. And I'm not talking about the championship. I'm talking about his charismatic entrance, his like you said, the unbeaten streak, like all of these things that contribute to like almost holding your breath when his entrance starts, and then magnetically being drawn to the screen while he's on there because you want to see what's going to happen. And they took that all away, and then to make it worse, you had Jeff Hardy not at his best doing an under 3 minute match. So
it just seems so. Yeah, it just seems random. And by the way, he's your current NXT champion.
No, Jeff Hardy's the champ now.
Yeah, like I just. Why? Like, why would you do that?
It's baffling to me.
I feel like the
terrible
Unsolved Mystery theme song should play as soon as
it absolutely should. Just an inexplicable decision. But we also had Money in the Bank Sunday night. First big pay-per-view back with crowds. Fort Worth. The crowd was hot for the show. It was awesome. Yeah. But the Mysterios versus Usos tag title match was on the pre-show. Like, I don't know why the pre-show, but it was a great tag team match. The Mysterios got a really cool kind of Lucha Underground-esque intro where they warped from like another worldly Chichen Itza Mayan pyramid thing to the arena. That was really cool. But yeah, that was about the best thing that happened for the Mysterios. They worked great together with the Usos. Rey kicked out of the Usos splash, which is unusual, and I thought for sure they were going to win at that point, but it didn't happen.
I was on that too, yeah.
Yeah, I was surprised too, given Jimmy's legal issues that, they pulled the trigger on them being tag champs, but I guess that's their vision for the Usos. And again, they got the win with that roll-up, the unmitigated danger of the schoolboy roll-up.
Most dangerous move in all of wrestling.
Once again.
And so we have new SmackDown tag team champions in the Usos. We also had Zelina in the Women's Money in the Bank match. Although she didn't win, hardly anybody pegged Nikki ASH as the possible winner of the match, but she pulled it off. Later cashed in on Raw the following night, and that's like the trend now. When you win the Women's Money in the Bank, you cash in the next night on Raw.
Or the same night.
Yeah, or the same night.
Is the 4th year in a row where a cash-in has occurred within 24 hours.
Yeah.
Yeah. And Carmella's the only one to hold it for any length of time, which is just mind-blowing. But, yeah. And so she cashed in. But Zelina had some great spots in the match. She got in a lot of offense. My personal favorite was when she rode on Natalia's back to the top of the ladder, but her scheming and dreaming weren't enough, and Nikki ASH was able to climb over the crowd and get the win. Nice surprising match. This was a good match. I enjoyed it, especially with the surprise ending. Everybody called Alexa Bliss. They got rid of her in an interesting fashion. I liked that. The whole thing was just, great match.
And at least somebody with a mask gimmick won. I mean, if we're not going to get Zelina Vega, let's give the mask wrestler the
Yeah, well, kind of. It's kind of a reach, but
mask is a mask.
Yeah.
We talked about this. There's masked wrestlers and there's luchadors, but masked wrestlers are closer to luchadors than most American wrestlers. So
Yeah.
Fair enough.
Little step in the right direction.
Right.
During our main event for the Universal title, between Edge and Roman, we saw the Mysterios run out after the Usos tried to get involved when Edge put Roman in a crossface like he did on Friday. But despite keeping the Usos out of the ring, the Mysterios' old foe, Seth Rollins, he showed up, super kicked Edge, seemingly building to the rumored Edge versus Seth Rollins matchup at SummerSlam. But I kind of hoped that we would get like a Rey and Edge versus Roman and Seth tag team matchup, maybe, or at least maybe beforehand. That would be pretty exciting.
Be a good match for the road to that SummerSlam match.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And the old guard versus the new guard, like old SmackDown. I mean, 2009, 2010, Rey and Edge were all over SmackDown. Yeah, so it's a nice little throwback. And we need a tag team match, playa. If we can't go one-on-one with The Undertaker, we gotta have a tag team match.
Oh, God bless you.
But yeah, that was this week in WWE. So the Mysterios, they lost the title, but they're higher than ever on the, kind of the visual scale and, involved with the main event still. So we'll see what comes to that. And I have not had time to watch it yet, but I know that Angel Garza was on main event this week. And so we will review that next week.
There's another guy they could be using better. Oh, well.
Well, that is this week in WWE. And, well, we still got plenty of more for you because, Dusty, you're going to take us through this week in AEW.
Yeah, we had quite a bit in AEW this week. Dark Elevation, Monday night, it was stacked with lucha content. There were several great matches. Jungle Boy versus Angelico was a real highlight.
Woo,
fire. Was such a fantastic match. So fun. The perfect type of pairing for Elevation. Angelico and Jungle Boy worked so well together. I mean, just fantastic. There was some smart mat wrestling. They got in some really great looking strikes. I mean, some of the Navarro stuff. Overall, so good. Like, on paper, you see Jungle Boy versus Angelico, you're like, oh yeah, that would be good. Like, it was so good. Like, it's everything you expect. I highly recommend that match. And the main event of Dark Elevation was Penta and Eddie Kingston versus JD Drake and Cesar Bonani. This was a fun match, but was more of a showcase for the pairing of Eddie and Penta than anything else. If you love those guys paired up as much as I do, it's absolutely a must-watch match. after the match, Penta got on the microphone and dropped a really charismatic promo in Spanish before Alex Abrahantes translated that Penta says how great it was to be back in Austin, how great it was to be back in front of the fans. And then Eddie got the microphone and said, if you ain't AEW, then you ain't shit. And so that's how they ended it. But we must give honorable mention to Fuego del Sol versus Luchasaurus. This was a really fun match, great match. Luchasaurus wins. But at the end, there's a feel-good moment where Jungle Boy and Luchasaurus raise Fuego's hand. The crowd was so excited for Fuego. He's in the entrance of, the main intro, rather, of Dark Elevation now. Mm-hmm. And so I think it's pretty safe to say that he's signed and we're being
worked a little bit.
Yeah. But I like it. I like Underdog Fuego del Sol. Very cool. Yeah. And we also want to shout out Dolce Tormenta versus Hikaru Shida. She's a second generation luchadora. All her brothers are luchadors. I think you know a little more about this than I do, Brendan.
Just a tiny bit. I researched her. They're all the Texas-based lucha family. Dad taught the brothers, and then dad and brothers taught Dolce Tormenta, who's been working regularly out of Texas-based promotions such as Mission Pro. So you can find more of her matches on there. It was really exciting to see her pop up on AEW, probably because they were in her backyard, but maybe they'll do more with her in the future.
Yeah. That would be exciting. She got a great reaction from the crowd, too. I mean, I don't know if it was a local thing. They were very hot for the local wrestlers.
Super hot for her. Yeah. Oh, yeah.
But it was a great match. And it's exciting to see unsigned lucha talent right now on Dark Elevation, especially. But speaking of lucha talent and signings, we had Tuesday Dark, Thunder Rosa versus Kylan King. This match was short and sweet. The crowd was ultra hot for Thunder Rosa. You can't imagine the noise in the arena. It was taped before Dynamite. It was one of the biggest pops of the night. The entire crowd, literally the entire crowd, were chanting for Thunder Rosa fans. We mentioned she had a birthday today, and in her even bigger news, Thunder Rosa is all elite.
It's official. It's happening.
Yeah,
Where's
it happened
gift?
today. Yeah. And Brian Alvarez was the first to report that Tony Khan bought out her NWA contract earlier this month. Then later, Fightful confirmed the report. It's, very interesting. She had asked for her release in 2020 and did not receive it. Tony Khan apparently wanted to buy the contract for a while, according to Fightful at least, wanted to buy the contract for a while and was unable to do so. But Billy Corgan recently, approved it. It went through. So she is now all elite. I can't imagine we won't see her back in NWA, especially at the Empower event coming up. Mm-hmm. But, I wouldn't also be surprised at all if Tony Khan made an announcement that Smashing Pumpkins were better than Radiohead or something strange.
Yeah.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
From the flip side of this, I can't blame NWA for dragging their feet on this. You have Thunder Rosa at the height of her popularity. Mm-hmm. You're building towards a women's division. Of course you want to keep her there. But even if she's asking for the release, you have plans. You want to use her as a centerpiece. So,
well, especially when she caught fire. She was the main attraction for NWA throughout the pandemic era. She was their highest profile. They had Ricky Starks, they had Eddie Kingston, but post-pandemic, all they had was Thunder Rosa.
Yeah. There are rumors there's more going on behind the scenes than just we can't pay you during COVID. So right. I just want to make it certain that there may be personal reasons why some of these people left as well. So, it's just the big reason why I don't like NWA holding on to talent either. If once you're to the point that the talent's asking to be let go, you're not WWE. You're not gaining anything by holding on to them.
Right. And there were also rumors during the pandemic era that Tony Khan was paying Thunder Rosa's guarantee because she was appearing on Dynamite, but it was also getting the NWA off the hook financially to Thunder Rosa. Mm-hmm. So there wasn't a whole lot of motivation for her to stick around if that was the case. Like if AEW's paying you. Like,
right.
Yeah.
Who's building the loyalty here? Tony Khan feels like he's building the loyalty and not Billy Corrigan.
Yes. So I think it'll be interesting. I assume we'll find out more details as time goes on. But, a lot of non-disclosure agreements go around these days, too, when you leave a company. So that could be, or non-disparagement clauses. So maybe we won't find out anything. But it's certainly an interesting set of circumstances right now, and interesting that Tony Khan bought out her contract. Yeah, I think we're going to see her instantly vaulted to the main event. I don't see anybody else getting the title from Britt Baker other than Thunder Rosa. They've got that fight forever feel now between them, and I am so excited for that pairing.
So I feel like that's actually the biggest motivation on the AEW side is if she's not signed, it's a risk and a liability to keep her in the title picture because you don't know when she's gonna take off and take a better deal somewhere else.
Well, but the fact that she didn't either, the fact that she, and who knows, there's a lot that we don't know, but I do think the sense that she really was the first to capitalize on this forbidden door concept that, and we'll talk more about her again later. Because, now that she's official, does this also mean we are going to still see her do more things? I do think that they really still need her as a cornerstone of the women's division because it's still struggling. Mm-hmm. And not for lack of talent, but I just think, rivalries, the writing's still a challenge, but I do think that anything that Thunder Rosa has done in AEW has been compelling.
Absolutely.
You're going to what I'm saying though. If she's not signed while she's in that position, it's a risk that you're going to just lose access to her while she's Nova hot and kind of, as you said, one of their cornerstones. And Dusty said too, like the Britt Baker feud is fight forever vibes. You want to lock that down. You want to make sure you have access to that magic. That's what I'm saying on the AEW side of let's buy out this contract. Let's pay your guarantees. Let's make this happen because she's money right now. She's a license to make money in 2021.
Absolutely. Well, and even the merchandising, like the action figure guys were real excited, online as soon as she was announced. And so the whole thing, it tempers down a lot of the liability that they might have of her going somewhere else. It was unlikely with Mission Pro and everything else she has going on that she would go anywhere else, but people will surprise you. So it was a smart decision on all sides for Thunder Rosa to be all elite. And also this week we had on Dynamite, we had a quick moment with Tony Schiavone introducing Andrade, and Andrade announced that he had a new executive consultant, and his executive consultant is Chavo Guerrero. This is a huge get for AEW. Basically everybody backstage at Lucha Underground and Glow, they talked about what a great coach / trainer / producer that Chavo was behind the scenes. And if AEW wants to take their lucha a little more seriously, which they seem to be doing now, somebody like Chavo backstage in that role is huge. Mm-hmm. He's a great talker. Perfect thing for Andrade. And they didn't get too far to the segment before we heard the music and Death Triangle were on the ramp. Phoenix is back. He was back from injury. Pac was there. It was awesome. Andrade tried to recruit them. He wanted to be their new leader. He told them they worked for him now. No coincidence, I'm sure he kept using the word tranquilo. I feel like that's building to something, hopefully. But he tried to recruit them to be their new leader to no avail. They did not want to be the new leader. They took turns denouncing Andrade before, the entire referee brigade came out and tried to separate them before Death Triangle then chased Chavo and Andrade out of the ring. It was so good, so exciting, exactly kind of what Andrade needed. It's setting his character up in a way that we kind of knew but didn't really have like a firm idea on before. He alluded to it with his black mask gear from Batman. But yeah, he's like El Jefe in a way. I mean, it's very cool. Love that. And also in an interesting bit of Andrade trivia, on this show, I believe it was the main event, Lance Archer defeated Moxley for the IWGP US title. And that was the last time, or the last time before this, that a New Japan title changed hands. And a non-New Japan ring was 8 years ago when Andrade, then La Sombra, beat Shinsuke Nakamura to win the IWGP Intercontinental title on May the 31st, 2013 in Arena, Mexico. So, I mean, just kind of a cool
now you're getting educated.
Tie-in. Yeah.
We gotta throw that info dump in there, yeah. Love it.
So a lot of cool Andrade stuff, finally getting some exposition of his character, a little bit of dimension to what he's doing. I think the pairing of Chavo and Andrade is so much better than the pairing of Vicky and Andrade, but it makes so much sense that Vicky would bring in her nephew Chavo. Like, I mean, they really tied it together in a way that I thought was sublime. I wondered where they were going with the Vicky thing. The pairing wasn't for me, but they really pulled it out. So
it finally made sense. Like,
absolutely.
I think our problem with AEW is we don't have enough history to, like we do with WWE, to have faith for them to make a good or a bad decision. And we finally saw that they were leaning to something good.
Yeah.
I was a tiny bit disappointed. There was this voice in the back of my head when I saw Chavo come out, like, well, now he can't be on Azteca Underground.
Yeah, that's true. Well, we've seen a lot of synergetic and talent transfers with MLW and AEW, and, kind of things go back and forth. So maybe he can show up.
I mean, I hope so. I have a question for you, Dusty.
Sure.
So last week you were at an AEW taping, you saw that, and then the WWE was in Texas this week, so you could have made it to that if you wanted to.
Yeah.
Do you think you made the right choice, or would you have rather been at the WWE show?
Oh, absolutely. I would go. We're already planning AEW shows again. Like, they're coming to St. Louis. We're talking about Full Gear if they don't do the, like a Dynamite here in Wichita, Omaha, anywhere we can drive in an afternoon. We're going to try to start going to AEW. Compared to WWE, it was so much fun, so easy. WWE felt like going to work, like in comparison. And I had no faith in WWE to put on a show that I wanted to see for the value. Like, we could have gone to SmackDown or Money in the Bank, and we just decided not to for the money. Like, I don't necessarily feel that we would have been disappointed this time, but I've been very disappointed with the money I've put up at WWE before. So, but Dynamite, this was my first Dynamite, but I had the best time. The crowd was incredible. It's just a different atmosphere in general. Even on TV, you can tell, but it's just so much more communal at an AEW event than anything I've ever encountered in all my years of WWF and WWE events.
Very cool.
Yeah.
So this was not a paid endorsement for AEW.
No. Yeah. Just my honest feelings. Yeah.
WWE, if you open your wallets, we'll say nice things about you, but.
Well, we always have nice things to say about NXT, at least.
Oh yeah, no, actually we do love WWE. Our problem with WWE, just to be clear, is that they disappoint us based on their potential. That's
absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, that is this week in AEW. Don't forget the results for WWE, such as Monday Night Raw and SmackDown, are available on luchacentral.com. And, of course, AEW Dark and Dynamite. stay tuned to keep on hearing our thoughts on both WWE products and AEW products. That includes this week in NXT. I would say we got 4 big takeaways from NXT this week. First, and somewhat in order, but not, whatever, is NXT has announced TakeOver 36. It has been announced for Sunday, August 22nd, which is the day after SummerSlam. So that is going to be an interesting series. This will be the first time that a takeover precedes a WWE main event. So we are going to get SummerSlam on Saturday night and then TakeOver on Sunday night. So that's, again, very interesting to see. That is going to be live at the Capitol Wrestling Center. It won't be on the road. I know NXT is still evaluating, some plans to go back on the road, and it does seem like if they do go back on the road, they will likely resume their Florida tour scene, which was what they did prior to the pandemic, though they were making some stops in different cities. It sounds like they would be starting in Florida again and then possibly moving their way back up to touring outside of the state of Florida. So traditionally their tours, because I was talking with you guys offline about this, they would do it over the summer. Mm-hmm. So they would do like a winter core stay in Florida where it's, they could control all the conditions, and then they would travel all across the country. We got to see 2 or 3 NXT shows up here in Seattle because so that hopefully that's what they're talking about returning to as well. But yeah, they need to do the baby steps, go into do the Florida tour first. Sorry, just cutting in. Very good point, yes. So that's number 1 takeaway from this week in NXT. Number 2, we had Frankie Monet back in action versus JC Jane. And this time around, she did come out with Jessie Kamea, formerly from the Robert Stone brand. Robert Stone did join them as well. So maybe she is now this new leader of the Robert Stone brand or this new faction. Really the more interesting thing that happened from this match was more what happened outside of the ring, and that was Mandy Rose. She came out and sat at the announce table, like literally on the table, to watch Frankie Monet work. Of course, Frankie Monet won with the Glam Slam, and afterwards, this was more for WWE.com, Frankie Monet did share a promo in which she put the entire women's division on notice. I do think it's very interesting that Mandy Rose watched her. Mandy Rose came out last week as well to watch another match. But it does now make a little bit more sense, that Mandy Rose is in NXT. It's been reported that her former tag team partner, Dana Brooke, is with child. So now it kind of makes, that's just put out and that could be a reason why Mandy Rose, that whole storyline kind of got dropped, and that she's in NXT. But I would be actually pretty surprised and pretty happy with a Mandy Rose Frankie Monet feud, with very similar kind of personalities and cattiness. And Frankie Monet just works miracles in the ring, so I think she'd be able to have a very good match with Mandy Rose. But it's also, again, her way of climbing her way towards the top. I hope to see her in a match on TakeOver, a proper match on TakeOver. I'd love to see that for her. Item number 3, we had Legado de Fantasma and Hit Row in a segment. It started off with Legado de Fantasma, which they had promised a mariachi musical madness, where they had some mariachis in masks with the guitars there. But Santos told his mariachi to leave the ring, and pretty much saying that he refused to lower himself to the level of Hit Row by using music, instead using wrestling to define himself and define Legado de Fantasma. But that means Hit Row came out talking some smack, and eventually that led to a confrontation between the two groups in the middle of the ring. At one point it looks like Santos was going to hit Isaiah Swerve Scott over the back with a guitar, but that was taken away, and then that guitar, I believe, got used on Joaquin Wilde. Yes, it did. It got used on Joaquin Wilde, who got the guitar. So this feud still is fire, with really the leads being Isaiah Swerve Scott and of course Santos Escobar. But you still have both members of both factions. It looks like it's a great faction warfare, and still playing up on those little things like music being a factor in it. I do hope it doesn't turn to be too gimmicky. I don't think it will, because both are able to talk, both are able to perform in the ring. This was just a way to kind of throw a common tie to two very completely different groups. So it was, entertaining. And you can't ever really get tired of seeing someone take a guitar shot. It's just wrestling science.
Yeah.
Jeff Jarrett made a career out of that.
Mm-hmm.
Broke 1 million guitars and never drew a dime.
Mm-hmm. And last but not least, we had Xia Li versus Raquel Gonzalez for the NXT Women's Championship.
Yes.
Really, as much as it was great to see them in the beginning of this match, the match really was clouded with, an injury that Xia Li ended up sustaining towards the end of the match. It looked like she got some kind of, getting the wind knocked out of her from I believe it was a Vader bomb, that Raquel Gonzalez.
Twisting Vader bomb.
Yeah, that twisting Vader bomb.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And pretty much knocked the wind out of her. And so towards the end of the match, officials, allowed the match to continue. But we weren't sure what that was going to look like. But Gonzalez won with the single arm power bomb, La Chingona bomb, for the win. It seems like a positive sign at the end. Xia Li did get up and was able to walk to the back. But, it was interesting how quickly they set this match up. And it's also one where, again, clash of styles with Xia Li much more within a striker style. And with the size of Raquel Gonzalez, very important that she utilize that striking to get her off her feet. But the strength of Raquel Gonzalez, even Xia Li, who is fairly strong in her own right, you just get, I think with some of that spinning Vader bomb, just right enough torque and enough momentum that I didn't necessarily see anything her landing correctly from what I could tell, but I think it just really just knocked her out. Just the power of it seemed to be overwhelming.
It's just physical contact. We talked about this in the interview with Gabe as well. It just happens. It's a contact sport. Sometimes things are going to not go just right, and that's all there is to it. Cause I didn't see anything wrong, and I know that's a move that Raquel does a lot, so if she had a history of hurting people, they probably would have stopped her from doing it. So
no, like I said, Sam, I didn't see anything as far as the landing or the way that it was performed. It's just that strength, and Raquel is incredibly strong.
Oh my goodness, yes.
She's incredibly strong. So, another successful win. Now, there are spoilers out there, because NXT has been taped for the next 2 weeks due to the Olympics. I've decided I'm not going to share those, but we do see a continuance with Raquel Gonzalez in the Women's Championship storyline. Something that I think a lot of fans have been thinking about happening or thought would happen has happened.
Oh,
so I'm just going to leave it at
wait.
that. It's something with Raquel Gonzalez is happening. Something that for some fans it's been, speculated and also kind of about time. So I'm going to wait until that airs to discuss it. The last thing I do want to mention about NXT too, we have the continuance of storyline between Samoa Joe and Karrion Kross. Samoa Joe came out at the beginning of the show saying he wanted a piece of Karrion Kross. William Regal said, no. You are an official now. Where Samoa Joe then said he was going to wait for Karrion Kross to come into the arena. He got someone who he thought was Karrion Kross was just some other bald guy. But that guy did reveal that Karrion Kross was already in the arena, and Karrion Kross got a sneak attack on Samoa Joe. That storyline does also continue in tapings. Again, I'm not going to mention that now. I'm going to just air these or talk about these results as they happen on television. But it'll be curious to see if Karrion does pull double duty on Raw and NXT over the next few weeks. And hopefully, it's going to be just a balancing act. As we talked about, it is very curious to see him have a loss against Jeff Hardy and then, beat up Samoa Joe on the same week. I think it's going to be a big challenge that if he's not successful or not winning on Raw, then how does that correlate with what he does in NXT? It also may seem like he doesn't have a match on NXT anytime soon, and maybe they're saving it just for the next takeover, and he primarily has matches on Raw. Lots to think about and speculate with Karrion Kross now, but it seems like he's probably going to be pulling double duty until, possibly at takeover, possibly dropping the title and making that full transition to Monday Night Raw, as history has shown us.
Ooh.
I know, not a huge fan of it, but we will see, WWE. We will see. Of course, the results for NXT are available on luchacentral.com, so make sure you check it out, or just keep listening to our show if you continue to miss it. Up next, though, I'm going to jump into Impact Wrestling. They're a little bit further up on our rundown this week because they had Slammiversary and talked about a packed week of wrestling, of surprises, of, things that we didn't expect. We had some things that we didn't expect at Slammiversary. Another great show, another great year of Slammiversary by Impact Wrestling. I'm going to go down through a few matches that Lucha Libre fans may want to know about. First off was the Ultimate X match for the X Division Championship. A highly anticipated match between Trey Miguel, Ace Austin, Petey Williams, Chris Bay, Rohit Raju, and of course, the challenger Josh Alexander. This is where the belt was suspended above the ring with two ropes in an X fashion, and the only way you could get it was to climb up and get the belt itself. This was some really interesting maneuvering, climbing up, utilizing of chairs, all of that, and there was this almost suspension where it was like a scorpion tail almost movement that happened. I think it was Josh Alexander who went up and legs up on the top of that X down, and there was a chain between everybody else in the match, with a sleeper hold to an ankle lock to, I forget the rest of the sequences, but it was really fun to watch. A super Canadian destroyer from Petey Williams on Rohit Raju and Trey Miguel. But ultimately the winner of this match and still your X Division champion, Josh Alexander. So I think it's hard to predict who could have won. Everyone had a case in this match to state as far as, who would have won. I was thinking it was going to be Trey Miguel just because he was the only one in this match who hadn't been X Division champion, but I still think it's an amazing job to keep Josh Alexander as your X Division champion. So I'm not mad at that at all. Next, we had a mixed tag match with Brian Myers and Tennille Dashwood, who they've kind of aligned themselves into a group or into a team against Matt Cardona and his mystery tag team partner, which, surprise, not surprise, was the hot mess Chelsea Green. And, for Impact fans, they've known Chelsea in her previous work. She's also the real life partner of Matt Cardona, so that also made sense. She still had the cast on, so I know some people didn't think it was going to be her because of her cast, but she was able to compete, and her and Matt successfully won that match. She also wrestled again this week on Impact. So we also saw her at Ring of Honor, announced for the Ring of Honor Women's Tournament, and it looks like she's going to make a stay in Impact as well. So, Chelsea Green, she's staying busy, and I think it's great to see her back at Impact Wrestling.
So the difference between states here made a huge difference because ROH, the story is the state of Maryland wouldn't let her wrestle in the cast.
Yes.
And I believe that because Washington State would be the same way. She couldn't wrestle here. So just a little sign of how wrestling can be different based on where you're viewing it. You might get some of that. Just an interesting little add-on.
And that's very true. And also kind of waiting for her to make her debut in Ring of Honor. Impact is taped in Nashville, Tennessee, which has slight, different rules. And just keep some of that anticipation. But it also means, just like EC3, we saw him wrestle in Ring of Honor and Impact at the same time. So doesn't, we don't know if she's in a contract with either company at this point, but it does look like she's actively going to be wrestling for both organizations.
At least through the course of that tournament. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. Up next, we had a fatal 4-way for the Impact Tag Team Championships. Earlier, it was announced that TJP was ruled out of the match. So Falaba needed a new partner, and that was revealed to be the former No Way Jose. To be his partner. So I forget, he went by a different name.
Nobody remembers it.
Nobody remembers. Not to be mean-spirited, I just don't remember.
No, you're not the only one. Everybody I've talked to about this has said the same thing. Like, I don't remember his name. They just called him No Way Jose.
No Way Jose, yes. The champions you had were Violent by Design, which were, they were utilizing the Freebird rule, so it was being defended by Rhino and Joe During. And this one too, Willie Mack as always, with some great spots. Same thing with Rich Swann. They were very entertaining. Even No Way Jose came out kind of in a very similar gimmick as what he used to do in WWE. Not sure if that's what he's going to continue to do or maybe do something else, but it seems like, if it's not broke, don't fix it. But in this match, we did have the Good Brothers win and become the new Impact Tag Team Champions. And so I wasn't thrilled by this. I was actually rooting for Violent by Design, because I thought they could have a very lengthy reign, but it looks like the titles are going back on to the Good Brothers. One of the biggest surprises of the night was for the Knockouts Championship match with Deonna Purrazzo, who was up against a mystery opponent, and names came out of everywhere, really.
Oh yeah.
But the mystery competitor was Thunder Rosa, making her, debut with Impact Wrestling. That was a surprise for a lot of people, even though it wasn't, because she, of course, it was part of that big tie-in with the NWA and AEW. I think just a lot of people I know for me in particular, was thinking it was going to be more of an Impact-related star. But nonetheless, Thunder Rosa coming in was, I think, a great idea. Just because of, Deonna Purrazzo being much more of I guess more in the lucha terminology, even though not necessarily lucha trained, in the Yavis style, more in the submission style, of wrestling, where also, the Thunder Rosa has more of that even mixed martial arts background. So that ended up being very interesting throughout the match itself. A very good, solid match. But Deonna Purrazzo came out with the win. And so what happened afterward, though, was also interesting, because Mickie James came out after the match and extended an invitation to Deonna Purrazzo to be part of the NWA all-women show Empower. And at first, Deonna scoffed, didn't seem very interested. This week on Impact, though, she did seemingly accept the invitation. So talk about that, the magic doors or the forbidden doors. It looks like that we're going to keep on seeing that with Impact Wrestling, as their Knockouts champion will compete at NWA Empower. And Thunder Rosa, this was official. This was just a few days before, the official announcement of her being signed by AEW. So who knows if that means we're finally going to get women's talent interchanged between AEW and Impact.
Man, such a crazy time. I love it.
I think that was a big surprise. I did not expect it. I did not expect to see Thunder Rosa be the mystery opponent.
She was one of my wouldn't it be cool thoughts, but I didn't.
Right? It was like, wouldn't it be cool? It would be pretty cool.
Yeah.
Yes. And again, it's a good, Deonna needs all the practice she's going to get when it comes to lucha libre style of wrestling, as she prepares for her, champion versus champion match at Triple Mania against Baby Apache. So I wish they had tied that in too as well, but anyways. Coulda, woulda, shoulda. Last but not least, we had the main event. It was a no disqualification match for the Impact World Championship, Sami Callihan versus Kenny Omega. Now, I think it was easy to assume that the no disqualification match meant that we were going to see, interference from the Bullet Club, maybe Don Callis, maybe, the Good Brothers. Some of that did kind of happen, but you did have the Good Brothers try to interfere, but you had Chris Sabin and Eddie Edwards come out to try and balance the odds. But really, the no disqualification match revolved around Sami Callihan's bread and butter, and that is hardcore, weapons. In the match, he utilized a pizza cutter on Kenny Omega's forehead. There was thumbtacks, steel chairs, much more of a hardcore match for this championship bout. But Kenny Omega locked in the one-winged angel on the thumbtacks to put away Sami Callihan. And so Omega did retain the championship. The big thing that came out, though, at the end was Switchblade Jay White came out at the end of the night. They threw out the too sweet to him. He did not respond. So it looks like there's more tie-ins happening in Impact Wrestling. And that too was a very big surprise to see Jay White. So not necessarily Lucha Libre related, but just a fun thing to mention with Impact. We ended last week's show talking about Impact being one of the companies truly partnering with other organizations, other pro wrestling companies. Whether it was allowing MLW to use the LAX name. Now we see, with the continued partnership with AEW, just bringing on Thunder Rosa, the partnership with NWA, and now continuing with New Japan having Jay White. So big kudos to Impact Wrestling. Another great year of Slammiversary. And much more results are available out there as far as what happened at Slammiversary. But again, just focusing on the Lucha Libre content or Lucha adjacent content that fans should know about. But Impact Wrestling, things are happening there as well. I think this week was all about the big surprises, the big appearances, the oh my gosh, wrestling is red hot again.
Yeah.
It is a beautiful time to be a pro wrestling fan. So make sure you check out, of course, this podcast for Impact Wrestling news, and also just stay tuned to luchacentral.com for pro wrestling results. Up next, though, Brennan, you have a Masked Republic minute update.
Heck yeah, Masked Republic. So the bad news for the listeners is that this will have happened by the time you're hearing this. But Masked Republic is part of Comic-Con at Home this year. They're doing a panel about video games, art, and Mexican culture. It was on the Friday panels at 4 p.m. CT. So you will definitely be able to find it somewhere. I'm certain that Masked Republic will put links up. Typically the Comic-Con at Home stuff is all available day of on their YouTube channel, so you will have a chance to see this panel, which is what I'm going to have to do because I'll be working when it hits, and I want to see it too. But just kind of cool thing, like Comic-Con and Masked Republic is a natural fit, and it's cool every time it happens.
Yeah. I wish we could get more lucha at these things. It'd be very exciting to see a tie-in there.
You never know. I mean, Masked Republic's been putting out the Luchaverse comics. Lucha Libre in particular, wrestling is super hot, but Lucha Libre in particular is red hot right now. So maybe that's something they do for next year's Comic-Con when guests can be there. They might have, San Diego's a hotbed for lucha talent locally. So
very true.
Just, and those of you that are listening and think this is a great idea, let the Comic-Con people know you think this is a great idea, because if they hear it, they'll do it.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, and that goes for also local Comic-Cons. It does seem like, regional Comic-Cons are now coming back up, and they have, more ability to incorporate different artists and panels and opportunity and events. So, even think about that in your local Comic-Con scene. And if you see any of that, let us know, just like we talk about in the Indie Roundup.
Yep.
If there is, a Comic-Con in your area that's featuring a lucha panel or lucha artist, or anything very cool related to, Lucha Libre, let us know, and we're happy to share it on the Lucha Central Weekly podcast.
So I'm just gonna. Headlocked Comics every year is touring most of the Comic Cons. They come up here to Seattle. They usually bring a wrestling talent or two with them. So if you are familiar with Headlocked Comics, let them know. Maybe you have a little more Lucha Libre content. I know I'm going to bug them about it. But they are, like, to Miranda's point, there's already wrestling talent that is being brought around, and Headlock regularly brings 2 or 3 people. I got to meet Ric Flair at a Comic-Con because he was signing Headlock Comics. So, come on.
Very cool. Yeah, no, that's super cool.
Well, speaking of history, kind of history. I had a segue and I lost it. But, Dusty, you gave us a little history lesson earlier in the show, so
it's true.
We're going to swing back to you, and why don't you take us through this week in Lucha Libre history?
That's right. It's time for This Week in Lucha Libre History. Be sure to check in at luchacentral.com every single day for This Day in Lucha Libre by Pep Carrera. He's got information on their birthdays, matches of the day, anniversaries, amazing videos, all kinds of stuff, even more than I'm describing. And it's all about Lucha Libre, and it's at luchacentral.com, your centralized place for all things Lucha Libre. This week, we chose July the 21st, 2009, when Hijo del Fantasma, who had Hector Garza in his corner, won the CMLL World Middleweight Championship after beating Inferno at the Arena Mexico in Mexico City. This was a great match. We had Fantasma in a beautiful teal mask and a full bodysuit, which instantly gave the feeling that things were a little different for this match. It was a 2 out of 3 falls match, with Inferno picking up the first fall before Hijo del Fantasma really hit his rhythm and lost his shirt and started to take over the match before picking up the win. After the match, Inferno showed respect to Fantasma by congratulating him and celebrating the victory. On February the 14th, 2010, after only one successful title defense since July 2009, Hijo del Fantasma lost the middleweight title to Negro Casas. This would be Hijo del Fantasma's only singles title run in CMLL, despite later challenging Dragon Rojo Jr., before later leaving for AAA in 2013. Brendan, what did you think of the match this week?
I loved this match. It's your classic CMLL old school production, which, some people might get tired of seeing it week in and week out, but when you see classic matches like this, you can really appreciate that 2 out of 3 falls and and just how good this format can be. And, the visual presentation started off right away for me because you mentioned that it was a white and teal outfit that he was wearing.
Yes, just stunning visual. Yeah.
It
stood out a lot.
Yeah.
And Inferno came out in black, so they were already visually telling you who to root for, and I was loving that. It was a very fun match to watch the classic stuff. The second fall was probably where the meat was at too. So I think that was the longest straight run of the match. And that, if you just watch that middle part of it, you get a great match out of it too. So all in all, fun stuff. Really, really impressed with this. Loved it. Miranda, what did you notice?
Yeah, The color scheme too was something very different because I've really only seen, Iho with the purple. Mm-hmm. And so it was just kind of different to see him in that light blue. But you're very right, both of you, as far as the traditional CMLL format, the falls. I did think it was kind of interesting with that last fall where it almost seemed like he kicked out right at 2.
Yeah.
And that was some of that, so almost controversial at the end. But it, when the referee called it and said, and Averno eventually, it did look like he was upset when he took the belt back, mm-hmm. trying to make a claim that, he hadn't lost, but then gave it to Iho. That kind of was a nice touch at the end. I loved the work that they did on the ramp. I thought that was one of the
cool spot. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Cool spot where Iho, flew over the top rope from the ramp back into the ring, and then the tope in between the ropes out to the crowd. And literally, I mean, that really pushed the chairs back. So, I guess that's just caution of Lucha Libre.
That's that arrow from hell kind of precursor there. Yeah.
True.
Yeah. But I thought it was a fun match to watch. I was entertained through the whole thing. And, that's one thing, even though CMLL is viewed in a more traditional, light, it does make it, as a fan, like very easy to watch. And sometimes you don't necessarily need to think, and not in a bad way that you don't need to think. It's just very straightforward. And I really do appreciate that about CMLL, because they put together very strong matches. I think it can be, after a while, very routine, and you're looking for, where's a swerve or where's something exciting. But I do think when they are able to, like I said, the work on the ramp, to me, was what made that match a little bit different. And, just even though you kind of got the sense with the 3 falls how it was going to go out, when they were able to do some unique moves and some fun things, that's what I think was that little pop of like, oh, that's interesting, or that's fun. And that helped make that match, worthwhile. Yeah. Well, ladies and gentlemen, that was this week in Lucha Libre history. Again, as Dusty mentioned, you can find this day in Lucha Libre history on luchacentral.com, but there is so much more. Brendan, do you mind telling our listeners what else they can find on luchacentral.com?
Let's do this again. So, folks, if you're listening to this and you haven't visited luchacentral.com, it really, really, really is time to do it. luchacentral.com is your online home for Lucha Libre, where you can get all of the top news in English and in Spanish. Find the best curated video content and original content not seen anywhere else. Find when Lucha Libre events would be happening in your area, and find photo galleries from the top photographers covering Lucha Libre around the world. A place to have your voices heard, from weekly polls to annual awards, seen and read by top executives in all of the major Lucha Libre promotions across the globe. And the final thing, that arrow, so to tie it back into that last segment, it's all free. All of it, free. Just go to luchacentral.com, your centralized place for all things Lucha Libre.
Brendan, you did such a wonderful job on that read for, luchacentral.com. If you don't mind, if it's too much, please let me know. But I'd love for you to take, this next opportunity to talk to us a bit about ROH this week.
Oh man. So, I went into this thinking it wasn't going to be a particularly strong lucha centric episode, but, we did have Rey Horus and Fred Yehi in the opening match, in a traditional rules, not pure rules match. And it kind of really stole the show. It really, the only flaw that I had with this is that it was the opening match on TV, so it didn't get as much time as it needed to be an amazing and top tier match. But you could easily see these two guys doing a great program together on a pay-per-view after this match. So check it out. There was some weirdness with the free TV, and I got to watch the episode late, but it is up. So go watch it on the ROH's site, or they'll probably have the highlights of this match up by now, or by the time you see this. But Miranda cued me in. We also have some announcements that just came out today. So we are building up towards Glory by Honor, and they have announced some matches for night 1, which is going to be August 20th, and I believe that would imply that the night 2 will probably be the 21st. But, that's just me making assumptions there. It would make sense. That's a Friday and a Saturday. One of the first matches they announced is another rematch of LFI versus Violence Unlimited at did they mention who specifically is going to be representing them, or did they just mention it by faction, Miranda?
Let me double check, because I believe they had a graphic of everyone that's going to be in the match. So please continue.
No worries. Yeah.
Please discuss as we.
And then the other one that we got is Bandito will be defending his ROH Heavyweight Championship at the Glory by Honor against Flip Gordon, the Mercenary. And I'm not sure if we've talked about this before. Flip himself is not a luchador, and much like PJ Black, like I talked about, he has worked with a lot of luchadors. He works very well with the style.
Yes.
I think that this will be a good matchup to make Bandito look good, and I think that's the point here. This isn't necessarily supposed to be the, oh my goodness, is Flip gonna win this match sort of thing. It's gonna be a showcase of two of their top tier talents and try and elevate both of the wrestlers.
Mm-hmm. Yes. Going back to Violence Unlimited versus La Facción, we are going to see Violence Unlimited's Brody King and Tony Deppen, as well as Chris Dickinson and Homicide versus Roosh, Dragon Lee, Kenny King, and Bestial del Ring.
Oh, so it's pretty much everybody.
Yep.
It really is LFI versus Violence Unlimited. So at that point, we can also expect that the Foundation will get involved at some point as well, and possibly even yet to be disclosed faction, because I kind of get the feeling they're building up to this week's television built up Shane Taylor Enterprises or Productions, one of those, Shane Taylor's faction. And they are kind of, as more wrestlers are returning, kind of reminding us that there are more factions in ROH. So I would suspect that this might get amended and a third or fourth team added in the near future.
Yes, it certainly does look like it.
That's the ROH news, though.
You know, we're going to be talking more about it as the weeks to come. Already seems like that week. We already have Ring of Honor, SummerSlam, and now NXT happening in one weekend. So.
That show's going to go long, folks.
Imagine that week afterwards is going to go. It's going to be packed with lots of content. So.
Yeah.
Get ready. Get your popcorn, get your seats.
There's also the normally WWE or during the not WWE Indies during the weeks that WWE is hosting WrestleMania, the Indies host a number of events in the same city, and because they're treating SummerSlam like WrestleMania, thanks to all of the COVID nonsense, there are Indies that are gearing up for big shows that weekend too. So there's going to be even more going on.
Yes, I can tell you I plan on being in Las Vegas for that SummerSlam weekend. Already GCW is planning on being there, and of course Future Stars of Wrestling both plan to have multiple shows throughout that weekend.
Exciting.
Not going to sleep. Just not going to sleep. Not sleeping that weekend.
Who needs a hotel?
Who just... It's going to be long, but it'll be very exciting. Be very, very exciting that weekend. And it's great. Again, the local wrestling economy, something we all here support. So we're going to jump into some brief AAA news with Dusty.
Yeah, there wasn't a whole lot going on this week, but AAA Azteca did air a brief video confrontation between Kenny and Andrade, with Don Callis on Kenny's side and Conan at Andrade's side. It was really the kind of same bravado that we saw between Kenny Omega and Jungle Boy before their match. But because Conan was there were some extra insults aimed at K-Dog and his association with Disco Inferno. So, yeah, it was funny. It was entertaining. It'll be interesting to see what comes of all of this, as well as Conan's involvement in all of this. This was before the pairing with Chavo Guerrero, but Conan figures and looms large in AAA and AAA history, so he's an important figure there, and Andrade being in AAA, yeah, it's interesting, but it's unknown how he may figure into things, or if he was just there and decided to give Andrade the rub because they were both backstage. But it's definitely an interesting wrinkle in the story leading towards Triple Mania and the AAA Mega Campeon Championship match between Andrade and Kenny Omega. I also want to shout out Cubs fan / Lucha Blog. He uploaded this segment on YouTube this week for all those of us in America. So big appreciation to him for doing that and everything else he's done to help us see AAA during the pandemic.
And just keeping us up to date on news in ways that we just like. I rely on Lucha Blog for a lot of my indie roundup news because there's just not enough of me to do what Cubs does.
He covers it all somehow. He's just does a fantastic job.
Thank you, Dusty, for that AAA news. Up next, some brief MLW news. Just a heads up that Battle Riot 3 will air on YouTube and Bein Sports on Saturday, July 24th, likely when you're listening to this show. So you will be able to watch Battle Riot 3, a very packed show, one that we are going to wait until it airs to talk more about. Though we did talk about the spoiler about, the new LAX coming together during Battle Riot 3 with Slice Boogie and Danny Limelight still being led by Conan. And so once the show airs, we're going to be able to talk more about the Battle Riot itself and some of the matches that were also taped for that. We also believe many of those matches were also taped for future episodes of MLW Fusion. So make sure you check it out. It's free on YouTube. Free. So
we're back to that price.
Yes. And make sure you check out MLW on YouTube for Battle Riot 3. Also, in MLW news, they've announced that the promotion is laying out their plans for the MLW Opera Cup tournament. And this is a tournament that did come back in 2019. And just more of an interesting note about cities being considered to host the tournament includes Chicago, New York, Baltimore, Toronto, and Boston. So I'd be very interested to see if, anything with the pandemic has a sway in the decision making to this. But, these were, this tournament was hosted in opera houses, I would guess nearly a century ago. So lots of history and tie-in with the Opera Cup tournament. But it does look like Major League Wrestling is moving forward with that tournament this year. And who knows, it may be coming to a city near you.
So, I'm just since I follow all of the pandemic news, the Toronto would have to be considered your outside pick.
Yes.
They're just now considering opening the borders up to tourists, and that's probably not going to last because we can't have nice things. So,
yes, I believe Canada was going to be opening their borders to vaccinated U.S. citizens. But then also, I know the United States has still decided to not allow Canadian citizens in. So, doing my best news gathering of that. But you're right. As much as that could be a consideration, that would probably be the long shot of the selected cities just because of the border issues between the United States and Canada at this time. And with many of your talent being U.S. citizens, it seems, unlikely that some of, it would be a challenge to do something internationally at this point.
Yeah. As weird as it is to think of Canada as international.
It is. Much. Last but not least, the final news, worthy item of tonight's show is CMLL. Brendan, go ahead and take it away.
All right. So we had just a few results there. Again, there's a lot of CMLL that has happened, but they are building up the Leyenda de Plata. And so we had the first half of it, which featured Dragon, Rojo Jr., Templario, Volador, Místico, Mephisto, Star Jr., Espirito Negro, and Raziel. And they did this in traditional CMLL tournament format where they had a battle royal first to determine the seeding. And I will spare you the long form results on that, which are available on luchacentral.com if you want to know who eliminated who. But the long and the short of it is Templario has advanced, and he will be at the finals on the 30th of this month against whoever comes out of this week's pay-per-view for the other half of the bracket. So there's your little go watch the pay-per-view plug plus your results from last week, where Templario has advanced to the finals. So we've already been denied the Mystico tweeted Mystico Caristico final, but I'm okay with that. I do want to see that match, Mystico and Caristico, at some point, but it doesn't need to be at the finals of the Leyenda de Plata. So there we go. It's our CMLL results this week.
And that does it for this week's episode of the Lucha Central Weekly Podcast. Thank you so much for listening, and we hope that you listen to next week's episode, and also you can listen to previous week's episodes. Where? Well, you can find that at luchacentral.com, your centralized place for all things Lucha Libre. You can also follow Lucha Central on social media, at Lucha Central on Facebook and Instagram, and at luchacentralcom on Twitter. Lucha Central also has a YouTube page with tons of content, including exclusive interviews, matches, and more. While you're there, well, why don't you go ahead and follow us on social media? Dusty, where can our listeners find you?
I am on Instagram at Dusty Murphy, and I am on Facebook at facebook.com/Dusty Murphy.
And Brendan, where can our listeners find you?
I am 321 T-shirt guy. That's the numbers 321, and then T-shirt guy is all spelled out. I am on Facebook. I'm on Instagram, and I'm all over the Twitters.
And me, Miranda Morales, you can find me at the #Miranda, hashtag spelled out, on Instagram and Facebook. As we mentioned earlier in the show, if you are a Lucha Libre fan, independent wrestling fan, promoter, wrestler, please reach out to us about Lucha Libre promotions or matches that are happening throughout the independent scene. We'd love to feature them on a future edition of the Indie Roundup. Also, kind of on the fly, as we mentioned, if you are also participating or know of Comic-Cons throughout the U.S. that have Lucha Libre content or luchadors attending, let us know. We'd be happy to promote them. For the Lucha Central Weekly Podcast, and for Dusty Murphy and Brendan Barr, I'm Miranda Morales. Thank you so much for listening to this week's episode, and we will be back next week.